Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Gluten Free Chef. I'm your host, Calvin, and I'm here to answer your questions about celiac disease, gluten-free living, and gluten-free eating. To learn more information on how you too can live a simple, happy, and healthy gluten-free lifestyle, follow my food blog at theglutenfreechefblog.com or follow me on Twitter at glutenfreechef5 and like me on Facebook at the Gluten Free Chef blog by Calvin Eaton. We're also found on Stitcher, and you can also review and like this podcast over at iTunes. Let's jump right into this week's episode. Welcome to episode 7 of Ask the Gluten Free Chef. I am your host, Calvin, and again, I am here to answer your gluten-free related questions and help you continue to live a safe, happy, and enjoyable gluten-free lifestyle. So let's just jump right into this week's topic. In question, help, I've been gluten, what do I do now? And this is the inevitable situation that all of us who have been dealing with celiac disease for quite some time, or gluten sensitivity, that time when you inadvertently, through no fault of your own, or in some cases through your own doing, ingest gluten when you weren't intending to. And the list of reasons why that happens is there's a long list of why that might happen. I know sometimes for me, because I cohabitate with people who are not gluten free, through cross-contamination. One time because of labeling and packaging, I wasn't doing my due diligence and paying attention to what I was picking up. So I ended up picking up a brand. I was intending to buy Udi's gluten-free bread, and then I ended up picking up the Rudy's gluten-free bread and not realizing that until after the fact. Sometimes you just snack on a product that you assume to be gluten-free and then realize later on when you experience those symptoms that it was not. Sometimes you are at a gathering or a party or even at a restaurant and you've been told that something is gluten-free, and then you realize hours later, days later, that was in fact not the case. So, this situation is really inevitable for those of us who are on a gluten-free diet and living a gluten-free lifestyle. And, really to start right off, really, it's such a conundrum living with celiac disease because there's really no one-size-fits-all answer to many of the questions that you all send to me through the email AskTheGlutenFreeChef@gmail.com and on the Facebook page as well, because all of us are individuals and there's such a wide range of symptomology that kind of comes with this. I'm just kind of pausing there. Is symptomology even a word? I'm not really sure, but what I'm trying to say is there's a long list of symptoms that kind of are related to celiac disease, and there's really no one symptom for any one person. Some people experience digestive type symptoms, so bloating, stomach cramps, stomach pain, just gastrointestinal upset. Those are really my types of symptoms. Some people experience like hives or break out in some type of a rash or even like boils. I've heard some people experience very cognitive related symptoms where they get dizzy, they feel foggy, they just feel overall like, someone explained it to me once of kind of like walking through the fog, dizziness, extreme fatigue. And these are symptoms that are not only related to celiac disease, these are symptoms that, especially for myself, are related to a host of other chronic illnesses. If you don't know, I'm a person who also lives with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. And so for me, these symptoms, fatigue, inflammation of joints, muscular pain, muscular ache, those are the symptoms that I also contend with that are related to my fibromyalgia. So for me, just speaking solely for myself, when I experience these symptoms, it's usually not related to getting glutened. It's not related to my celiac diagnosis. It's related to my, fibromyalgia. And so I have a host of treatments that I do to help me kind of cope with these symptoms. So it's really interesting to hear how, the symptoms that are related to people getting glutened are also related to other illnesses. So sometimes just that gray area of, I'm experiencing this symptom, what is it from? And I say all of that to say that sometimes you might have stomach upset, and you're wrecking your brain trying to think through, like, what have you eaten, where have you eaten, where did your food come from over the last couple of days, and it might not mean that you have been glutened. And so that's why it's sometimes so hard to pinpoint, where that contamination came from. But, what I like to do is when this has happened to me, and just in general, I keep I try to keep a pretty accurate, detailed synopsis of what I'm eating from day to day. Like, for instance, for me right now, I'm really kind of diet-wise doing a really restricted caloric diet right now. So I'm pretty much taking notes on what I'm eating throughout the day, every single day. So I know for a fact right now, in this moment of my life, I'm eating mostly fruits, vegetables, smoothies that I'm juicing. So, I'm really not being too concerned about being contaminated by gluten now when I am not on this type of a diet or lifestyle eating plan, because I don't do this type of thing like all the time long term. Sometimes I am not being so restrictive in what I'm eating, and I do, pop into a restaurant, or I do eat something that someone else prepared under the assumption that this might be gluten-free. So when I'm eating in that way, then it can become a little bit more complex as to if I do start to feel these types of symptoms and I kind of rule everything else out. It's not fibromyalgia for me. It's not chronic fatigue. Maybe I did ingest something, and because my symptoms for myself are digestive related, and within 2 to 3 days after eating something that contains gluten, I'm experiencing, the bowel cramping, the stomach cramping. I'm feeling the bloating. I'm feeling the pain in my throat. I'm doubled over in pain. I'm writhing in pain from a gastrointestinal sense. I know for a fact when I'm experiencing those types of symptoms, and I've ruled out any type of like a stomach virus or something like that, 9 times out of 10 for me, I know that when I'm experiencing those symptoms, then it is a gluten contamination related type of a symptom. But for other folks who may not have symptoms that are digestive related, their symptoms might be more of a fatigue or more of a dizziness or cognitive delay. So I say all that to say, because the symptoms of being glutened vary so much from one person to the next person, it's sometimes really difficult to know, like, what should you do? And so what I wanted to do in this podcast is really just, I reached out to the Facebook group that I am kind of co-administrator of, Gluten Free Rochester, and I asked some of the folks that are in the group, what do you do when you're glutened? And I just really wanted to take a poll and kind of get some responses from them so that I can kind of reach out and see what are some other folks doing. Because, it's really good for me, being a chef and being someone who's a foodie and a blogger, to really, kind of get the word of the people, so to speak, and really see what other celiac persons are doing or what they're not doing. And really, I wanted to create a list of do's and a list of don'ts, to be very clear, and kind of give you some strategies to cope when you are glutened. Because no matter how careful you are, and no matter how much due diligence you take, there's going to always be that moment at some part of your celiac journey where you are contaminated with gluten. And unfortunately, the first don't, there's no magic pill. There's no, sometimes we just want to take a pill. There's no pill that's going to make it all better. Really it's, what do you do psychologically? What do you, kind of do, like, what steps do you actually physically take to kind of counteract being glutened? And so, the first thing, the first do, if you know for a fact that you've been glutened, is really the do is a don't. if that makes any sense. Don't panic. You know, one of the biggest things that I like to say is that, perception is our reality, and I think sometimes when you get glutened and you initially start to panic, overreact, work yourself up, you're almost doing more harm to yourself than maybe even the gluten. Because if you listened to last week's podcast, how much gluten actually will make me sick, we talked about that there's a threshold that you have where, if you took a bite of something and swallowed it, and it's, maybe a cracker that you somehow thought was gluten-free and it wasn't, that may not be the end of the world. If it wasn't a whole meal that was completely contaminated, you might not have to take such drastic measures, and you might not need to work yourself up so bad because the level of gluten that you ingested is not a level that is going to tip the scale, so to speak. But there are those of us who have celiac disease or a gluten sensitivity or a wheat allergy or what have you, that even minimal traces of wheat or gluten is enough to potentially make you extremely sick. And so if you are that sensitive, still do not panic. You really just want to stay calm. I like to say, think about what you've eaten in the last 24 to 48 hours, kind of try to, in your mind, backtrack and really retrace your steps so that you can just, first of all, kind of think through where that potential source of gluten came from, because that's really important. Because if you're, if it's like you're at work and you're eating from the work cafeteria and you're under the guise that something is gluten-free and it's not, you might have been eating it repeatedly for days or weeks on end. So you really want to try to think through where that potential source of gluten came from. If you've picked up takeout from a restaurant that has assured you that their food is gluten-free and they've taken all the precautions of cross-contamination, and then on some instance you get sick, then you need to know that. You need to pinpoint that, because you may need to go back to that restaurant and let them know that. And again, you may choose not to eat at that restaurant again. The same thing goes for a gluten-free product that you read the label. The label has the gluten-free symbol on it. You've read the ingredients. You feel that it was safe. You get sick from it. If you've ruled everything else out and you can't think of anything else, there's no other reasonable explanation for your symptoms to be coming from somewhere else, then maybe you don't buy that product again and eat it again, and you file a complaint on the website of the producer or the processor of that product, because they need to know that, and you need to stop eating that particular product. So be calm. Don't overreact. Stay calm. Think about where you've eaten, where it came from, what did you do in the course of the day, so that you can really try to pinpoint where that contamination came from so that you don't do it again. You do want to relax. You do want to initially drink plenty of water. Don't overreact. Do think about where that potential trace of gluten came from, and start to get plenty of fluids in your system, because what you want to start doing is trying to flush out that gluten, flush out the contamination. What you want to kind of do from a digestive perspective initially is don't really eat any complex gluten-free grains for the next 24 to 72 hours. So what I mean by that is that you want to start drinking plenty of water. If, I'm not saying, you start chugging gallons of water, but just slowly start getting more water than usual into your system so that you can start flushing your body. After you've maybe thought about what you've eaten and pinpointed that trace of gluten, you want to start eating foods that are healing types of foods. Another thing that you might drink is, warm water with, fresh squeezed lemon in it, maybe a little fennel seed in it, so that this will kind of help you start to detox your system. Another thing that you might want to do, so you do want to take a warm bath, take an Epsom salt bath. What I like to do is just kind of to relax my mind and my body is to fill the tub up with warm water, give myself 2 to 3 cups of Epsom salt and a little lavender or peppermint essential oil. get yourself in that hot bath and just kind of really relax. Relax your muscles, relax the tension, think positive thoughts. You want to think thoughts that, I've ingested gluten, but it's not the end of the world. I will get through this. I can succeed in detoxing my body from this moment. You just want to start thinking positive thoughts, start thinking calming thoughts, and doing things that are going to relax your body are, essential in this time. You may want to kind of clear your day if you can. If you can get some rest, if you can just kind of relax and just rest your body, this is not the time to try to, run that 5 miles or whatever your exercise of choice is. You really don't want to agitate your system anymore because you've ingested gluten. Your body sees it as a threat, as an enemy, and you want to really just calm your system and focus and meditate on allowing your body to heal and to rid your body of this contamination. You do want to try to drink more things that will help your digestion. Even if your symptoms are not digestive related, you still want to drink water, perhaps an herbal tea, perhaps warm water with lemon. What I like to do is I drink ginger ale, a low sugar ginger ale. The carbonation in the ginger ale or in a seltzer water really helps my stomach to settle. So I really like the Polar brand. I don't think it's specifically seltzer water, but it's carbonated water that has a essence of fruit. So there's like the Polar, I think it's either Polar or Poland. Poland Spring makes one, and there's a Polar brand of carbonated water. It's not tonic water and it's not seltzer water, but it's a carbonated water that has an essence of fruit. So they have like lemon lime, they have like cranberry orange, there's a lemon one. They're just basically carbonated water with the essence of fruit, and I use these types of carbonated waters as a replacement for soda for me in general, but especially when I've either ingested gluten or just kind of feel a nauseating, upset stomach, because like I mentioned, for me, having an upset stomach doesn't necessarily always mean that I've ingested gluten. It's a symptom of some of the other illnesses that I deal with. So I like to settle my stomach with a ginger ale, sipping on that, or a carbonated water or seltzer water, something of that nature that doesn't have tons of sugar in it, but still giving you that carbonation to kind of help with the nausea or that feeling of just like wanting to throw up but not being able to. I don't recommend that you force yourself to throw up, but I have talked to some folks that feel that that helps them. That's not something that I do, so I don't think that I could recommend it for you if you're listening. But if you've done that in the past and you think that it helps you, then I guess by all means. But I would say you probably don't want to, try to induce yourself to throwing up. So far we've talked about you do want to stay calm, you do want to get some rest, you do want to relax, you do want to take a Epsom salt soak with some lavender essential oil or peppermint essential oil or whatever you put in a bath water for you that helps you kind of calm your nerves, calm your body, calm your senses. Some people take, you do want to take some type of a probiotic. There's digestive enzymes that you can purchase from your local health food store and even online that are digestive enzymes that help. They're probiotics. I would not recommend that you do like any dairy-based probiotic. I know kefir is a really great natural probiotic, but because it's dairy-based, and we've already mentioned that you kind of want to, at least for the first 24 to 72 hours or even longer than that, you don't want to be taking in anything that is a complex substance that is going to be complex to your digestive tract at that time. Your body is kind of already overloaded and your system is overloaded with this contamination, the gluten, it being gluten in this case. So you definitely don't want to be ingesting anything like a dairy product like kefir You don't want to be even any type of non-gluten free or what am I trying to say? A grain free grains. So any complex carbs like quinoa, you don't want to do that. Oats are naturally gluten free, but stay away from that, at least in this instance when you've been gluten, because you want to really ingest simple foods. We've talked about sipping on herbal teas, ginger ale or seltzer water. Coconut water is good. A bone broth or veggie broth is good for you to kind of drink on. If you must eat, try maybe like a baked apple, sweet potatoes, just watermelon for in the summer. Those types of fruits and vegetables that are really simple, they're not too complex, they can run through your system pretty easily, and it's not going to be complex for your body to break down. I would stay away from like any kind of like a heavy type of a meat, steak, pork. I wouldn't eat those types of things, so you don't want to eat anything like that, at least in those initial hours and days after being gluten, because your system is already overloaded, and what you're trying to do is focus all of your energies and help your body focus on detoxing itself from this contamination. Additionally, some people and not that I want to promote any particular brand, but there's a Garden of Life Primal Defense that people like to take. It's a supplement that people that I've talked to feel really help them, not only daily, but especially when they've been glutened, and so they maybe double or triple up on the dosage. Any type of an enzyme or supplement that's like that, you definitely want to consult with a nutritionist and or your physician before doubling or tripling the dosage, just so that you're making sure that you're being safe. Some people have recommended the L-amino acid. It's L, and I hope that I'm pronouncing this correctly, but it's L-GLUTAMIN. I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I don't want to butcher it, but it's an amino acid, and it helps with breaking down enzymes in your stomach. So again, I'll just spell it. It's L-GLUTAMINE. That is something that people have recommended that helps them. I don't recommend any of those types of like gluten buster enzymes. I personally have not had great experience with them, so I can't endorse them for you or anyone who's listening. And additionally, I've done some research on those types of gluten buster enzymes, and there is really no scientific evidence that's conclusive that backs up or supports that they're actually effective just in general. So my suggestion is that you stay away from those types of things. One person that I talked to, because of her symptoms and because of like the gas and the bloating that she gets when she's glutened or ingests gluten, she uses the Gas X to help with just that gassy feeling that helps her. And because excessive gas is one of her symptoms when she ingests wheat or gluten, that's something that she adds to her treatment protocol when she's been glutened. And again, these are all just suggestions from folks and from myself that people use as kind of in their bank or their reservoir of treatment protocols when they have been glutened. So I think just to kind of wrap up and recap what we've discussed so far in the podcast, you especially want to stay calm. You do want to get plenty of fluids in your system, whether that comes from water, herbal teas. I would suggest a peppermint tea because that's really calming. Just a plain black tea even. Polar seltzer water is really good for settling your stomach. Ginger ale, coconut water, or a bone or veggie broth. Making sure that you're eating a simple diet around that time. I just can't stress enough how much getting plenty of fluids in your system is to really, you're thinking you want to flush out those toxins from your body. You want to try to get plenty of rest, more rest than usual, even if you're not tired. Just getting rest, just kind of relaxing, not going. You just want to kind of Do some meditation if you can, maybe do some yoga or Pilates. Those are types of things that really help me to mentally and physically relax and meditate. And you want to get some type of a digestive enzyme that's a naturally occurring enzyme into your system. You want to stay away from dairy products and any other kind of complex gluten-free carbohydrate. Simple foods are best during this time. So I hope that, these suggestions are helpful to you. I know, like we said, because the symptoms of people who have celiac disease, they have such a wide range. Some or none of these might prove effective for you, or maybe you have other treatments that you really believe in that have helped you. If you do, I think that what I would like for you to do for this week's podcast is to just drop a line. You can send an email, AskTheGlutenFreeChef@gmail.com. Really submit any type of suggestions that you have when you're glutened, what works for you, what doesn't, so that we can get this information out to the readers, to the subscribers of the podcast. What do you do personally when you're glutened? Drop a line. You can visit me on Facebook at the Gluten Free Chef blog by Calvin Eaton. You can tweet Gluten Free Chef 5 under the hashtag AskTheGlutenFreeChef. Giving us some feedback, giving me some feedback. What do you do when you've been glutened? And hopefully this information was helpful for you this week. And I appreciate you listening. This is our 7th week of the podcast, and I just continue to be amazed at the likes and the loves, the shares that the podcasts are getting. I'm getting great support from those in the celiac community who are really benefiting from the, advice that I'm giving to you each and every week. If you have other suggestions for questions that you might have, again, the Gmail is AskTheGlutenFreeChef@gmail.com. The Facebook is the Gluten Free Chef blog by Calvin Eaton, and the Twitter handle is Gluten Free Chef 5 under the hashtag AskTheGlutenFreeChef. And I look forward to next week where I'll be speaking with you, and stay tuned for updates on what next week's question and topic will be. But until then, I'm signing out. Calvin Eaton, Ask the Gluten Free Chef, signing off.